pregnant with 4 babies after one night with a mysterious billionaire she never recognized. Welcome back to Love Scene Diaries, where we bring you the most captivating love stories filled with passion, heartbreak, and redemption. Today's story is one you won't want to miss, a tale of unexpected love, life-changing secrets, and a night that altered everything. Have you ever met someone who changed your life in just one night? Let us know in the comments below as we dive into this unforgettable journey. Olivia Carter's life was anything but glamorous. At 28, she was a talented interior designer with big dreams but little time to chase them. Between juggling demanding freelance projects and raising her 16-year-old sister, Emma, Olivia barely had a moment to breathe. Her days were a blur of client meetings, late-night design sketches, and making sure Emma stayed on track with school. But behind her calm, composed exterior was a woman who had been through more than her fair share of heartbreak. After losing her parents in a tragic car accident 6 years ago, Olivia had taken on the role of both sister and mother to Emma, and as if that wasn't enough, her college sweetheart, the man she thought she'd spend her life with, had walked out on her when she needed him most. Since then, Olivia had built walls around her heart, vowing never to let anyone hurt her again. Still, she couldn't help but dream of a better life. A life where she wasn't constantly worried about paying bills or whether Emma would have the opportunities she deserved. A life where she could finally open her own design studio and create the spaces she'd always envisioned. But for now, those dreams felt as distant as the stars. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Olivia's phone buzzed with a message from her best friend, Rachel. "You're not going to believe this," the text read. "I need a favor. Can you fill in for me at the Hayes Foundation gala tonight? I'm stuck at work and they need someone to help with last-minute event coordination." Olivia hesitated. A charity gala? That wasn't her scene. She didn't own anything remotely fancy enough for an event like that, and the thought of mingling with the city's wealthiest elites made her stomach churn. But Rachel had been there for her through thick and thin, and Olivia couldn't say no. By the time she arrived at the grand ballroom that evening, Olivia felt completely out of place. The room was a dazzling display of wealth and opulence. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and guests dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. Olivia, in her borrowed black dress and simple heels, felt like a fish out of water. She busied herself with the tasks Rachel had assigned her, trying to stay invisible, but as the night wore on, she couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. These people lived in a world so far removed from her own, a world where money wasn't a constant worry, and dreams didn't have to be put on hold. It was during a quiet moment near the terrace that Olivia first noticed him. He wasn't like the other guests, who seemed to revel in their wealth and status. He stood alone, leaning against the railing, his sharp features illuminated by the soft glow of the city lights. There was something about him, an air of mystery, a quiet intensity, that made it impossible to look away. Before she could stop herself, Olivia found her feet carrying her toward him. "Not a fan of the party?" she asked, her voice light but curious. The man turned to her, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, he didn't say anything, as if he were trying to figure her out. Then, a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Let's just say, it's not my usual scene." They fell into an easy conversation, the kind Olivia hadn't had in years. He introduced himself as Alex, and though he didn't share much about his life, Olivia found herself opening up to him in a way she never had with anyone else. They talked about everything. Her dreams of opening a design studio, his love for music, and the feeling of being out of place in a world that didn't quite understand them. There was a warmth to Alex, a sincerity that made Olivia forget, if only for a moment, about the wall she'd built around her heart. And when he looked at her, it wasn't with the condescension or pity she'd come to expect from people who had more than she ever would. It was as if he saw her, not just the struggling designer or the overworked sister, but the woman she was beneath it all. As the night wore on, the party faded into the background. It was just the two of them, standing under the stars, sharing pieces of themselves they'd never shared with anyone else. Olivia couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so alive, so seen. And then, without warning, Alex leaned in. His lips brushed against hers, tentative at first, then more certain as she responded. It was a kiss that felt like a promise of something new, something unexpected. But just as quickly as the moment came, it was gone. Alex pulled back, his expression unreadable. "I should go," he said softly, his voice tinged with regret. "Wait," Olivia called after him, but he was already disappearing into the crowd. She stood there for a long time, her heart racing, her mind spinning with questions. Who was Alex really, and why did it feel like meeting him had changed something inside her? Something she couldn't quite put into words. Have you ever met someone who changed your life in just one night? What would you do if you were Olivia? Let us know in the comments below. The night was winding down, but Olivia couldn't bring herself to leave the terrace. The cool breeze carried the faint hum of the party inside, but out here it was quiet, just her and Alex. She glanced at him, still leaning against the railing, his gaze fixed on the city skyline. There was something about him that felt different. He wasn't like the other guests, who flaunted their wealth and status with every word. Alex was reserved, almost guarded, but there was a quiet intensity in his eyes that made her want to know more. "Do you come to these events often?" Olivia asked, breaking the silence. Alex chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Not really my thing. I prefer to stay out of the spotlight." "Then why are you here?" she pressed, her curiosity getting the better of her. He hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. "Let's just say I owed someone a favor," he said cryptically, his lips curving into a faint smile. Olivia tilted her head, studying him. "You're a bit of a mystery, aren't you?" "And you're not," he countered, his gaze locking onto hers. She laughed, a sound that felt foreign to her after so many years of stress and struggle. "Trust me, there's nothing mysterious about me. I'm just a regular woman trying to keep her head above water." Alex's expression softened. "I don't believe that. You don't strike me as someone who's just regular." His words caught her off guard, and for a moment she didn't know how to respond. No one had ever looked at her the way Alex did, as if she were something extraordinary. As the hours passed, their conversation deepened. They moved from the terrace to a quiet corner of the garden, away from the noise of the party. Olivia found herself opening up to Alex in a way she hadn't with anyone in years. She told him about her parents, about how their sudden deaths had forced her to grow up overnight. She spoke of her sister, Emma, and the pressure she felt to give her a better life. And she shared her dream of opening her own design studio, a dream that felt so far out of reach it almost hurt to say it out loud. Alex listened intently, his blue eyes never leaving hers. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for," he said softly. "Most people would have given up by now, but you're still fighting. That's something to be proud of." Olivia felt a lump form in her throat. She wasn't used to hearing words like that, especially from someone she'd just met. "What about you?" she asked, desperate to shift the focus away from herself. "What's your story?" Alex hesitated, his jaw tightening. "Let's just say I've made my fair share of mistakes," he said finally. "I've spent most of my life trying to prove something, to myself, to others. But somewhere along the way I lost sight of what really matters." His words were vague, but there was a rawness in his voice that made Olivia's heart ache. She wanted to ask more, to understand the man behind the mystery, but she sensed that he wasn't ready to share. The garden was bathed in moonlight, the soft glow casting a magical aura over the moment. Olivia and Alex stood close, their faces inches apart. The air between them was charged, every glance, every word pulling them closer together. "I don't know what it is about you," Alex murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, "but I feel like I've known you forever." Olivia's breath hitched. She felt it too, that inexplicable connection, as if fate had brought them together for a reason. "Maybe we were meant to meet tonight," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. Alex reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, and Olivia felt her heart race. Before she could second-guess herself, he leaned in, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that was both tender and passionate. Time seemed to stand still as they lost themselves in each other. The world around them faded away, leaving only the two of them under the stars. What started as a kiss quickly became something more. They found themselves in Alex's hotel suite, the city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Olivia's nerves threatened to take over, but Alex's touch was reassuring, his every movement filled with care and intention. For the first time in years, Olivia let herself be vulnerable. She let herself feel. And in Alex's arms she found a sense of safety she hadn't known she needed. When Olivia woke the next morning, the sunlight streaming through the curtains, she reached out instinctively, but Alex was gone. Her heart sank as she sat up, the events of the night before flooding her mind. Had it all been a mistake? Her eyes fell on a piece of paper on the nightstand. It was a note, written in neat, elegant handwriting. "Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to be human. I hope you never stop chasing your dreams. Alex." Olivia stared at the note, her emotions a whirlwind of confusion and longing. She barely knew him, yet he'd left an imprint on her heart that she couldn't ignore. She told herself it was for the best. Men like Alex didn't belong in her world, and she couldn't afford to get her hopes up. But as she left the hotel and stepped back into her reality, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't yet understand. What would you do if you fell for someone you barely knew? Would you take the risk? Let us know in the comments below. The weeks that followed Olivia's night with Alex were a blur of emotions. At first she tried to push the memory of him to the back of her mind. It had been one night, one magical, unforgettable night, but that was all it could ever be. Men like Alex didn't belong in her world, and she had too much on her plate to waste time daydreaming about someone she'd never see again. But then the nausea started. At first Olivia chalked it up to stress. Between juggling her freelance design projects and taking care of Emma, she barely had time to eat, let alone rest. But when the nausea turned into full-blown morning sickness, she knew something was wrong. Her heart pounded as she stared at the pregnancy test in her hand, the 2 pink lines glaring back at her like a neon sign. Pregnant. The word echoed in her mind over and over until it felt like the walls were closing in around her. She sank onto the bathroom floor, her hands trembling. This couldn't be happening. She wasn't ready for this. She could barely keep her life together as it was. How was she supposed to raise a child? But as the initial shock began to fade, a new wave of panic set in. What if it wasn't just one baby? Her mother had been a twin, and multiple births ran in her family. The thought made her stomach churn, and not just from the morning sickness. A visit to the doctor confirmed her worst fears. She wasn't just pregnant, she was carrying quadruplets. Olivia sat in the doctor's office, staring blankly at the ultrasound images in her hand. 4 tiny heartbeats, 4 lives growing inside her. She felt a strange mix of awe and terror as she tried to process what this meant. Her mind immediately went to Alex. He had a right to know, didn't he? But how could she even begin to find him? She didn't have his last name, his phone number, or any way to contact him. For all she knew, he could be halfway across the world by now. And even if she did find him, what would she say? "Hi, remember me, the woman you spent one night with? Well, surprise, I'm pregnant with your 4 babies." The thought made her cringe. No, it was better this way. She would figure it out on her own, just like she always had. She didn't need Alex, and she certainly didn't need the complications that came with him. Determined to focus on her work and provide for her growing family, Olivia threw herself into her design projects. She was in the middle of sketching ideas for a client when her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from a high-end real estate company, Hayes Enterprises, offering her a lucrative contract to redesign the lobby of one of their luxury hotels. Olivia's jaw dropped as she read the email. This was the kind of opportunity she'd been dreaming of, one that could finally put her on the map as a designer. She accepted the offer without hesitation, eager to prove herself. The day Olivia arrived at the hotel to begin her work, she was struck by its grandeur. The lobby was a masterpiece of marble and glass with soaring ceilings and intricate chandeliers. It was the kind of place she'd only ever seen in magazines, and she couldn't believe she'd been chosen to redesign it. As she set up her materials, she felt a strange sense of déjà vu. There was something familiar about the space, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. "Miss Carter?" The deep, familiar voice sent a shiver down her spine. She turned slowly, her heart pounding, and there he was. Alex. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Olivia's mind raced as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Alex wasn't just a guest at the gala. He wasn't just some mysterious man who had swept her off her feet. He was the owner of the hotel. You're Alex Hayes, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex's expression was unreadable as he stepped closer. I didn't expect to see you here, he said, his tone cautious. Olivia's emotions swung wildly between shock, anger, and something she couldn't quite name. You lied to me, she said, her voice trembling. You pretended to be someone you're not. I didn't lie, Alex said evenly. I just didn't tell you everything. Everything. Olivia let out a bitter laugh. You didn't think it was important to mention that you're a billionaire? Alex's jaw tightened. I didn't want you to see me as this, he said, gesturing to the opulent surroundings. I wanted you to see me for who I really am. Olivia shook her head, her mind spinning. She wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but before she could say another word, the nausea hit her like a freight train. She clapped a hand over her mouth and bolted for the nearest restroom. When Olivia emerged, pale and shaken, Alex was waiting for her. His concern was evident as he stepped forward. Are you okay? She hesitated, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading. I'm pregnant, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex froze, his eyes widening. What? I'm pregnant, she repeated, her voice stronger this time. And they're yours. For a moment, Alex looked like he'd been punched in the gut. He ran a hand through his hair, his expression a mix of shock and disbelief. How? How far along are you? About 10 weeks, Olivia said, and it's not just one baby, it's 4. Alex stared at her, his mind clearly racing. Quadruplets? He said, his voice barely audible. Olivia nodded, her heart pounding. She braced herself for his reaction, expecting anger or denial, but instead, Alex surprised her. I want to be part of their lives, he said firmly, and yours. Olivia's eyes narrowed. You don't get to just show up and decide that, she said, her voice laced with anger. You lied to me, Alex. You kept secrets. How am I supposed to trust you? I didn't lie, Alex said, his voice rising. I didn't tell you everything because I didn't want to scare you away. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Olivia shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. I don't know if I can do this, she said, her voice breaking. I don't know if I can trust you. Alex stepped closer, his expression softening. I know I've made mistakes, he said quietly, but I'm not going to walk away from you or our children. Please, just give me a chance to prove myself. Do you believe in second chances? Should Olivia let Alex back into her life? Let us know in the comments below. The days following their tense reunion were a whirlwind of emotions for Olivia. Alex had insisted on being part of her life, but she wasn't sure how to let him in. She had spent so long building walls around her heart, and now, with 4 lives growing inside her, the stakes were higher than ever. Alex, however, was determined. He began showing up at her doctor's appointments, asking questions about the babies, and even offering to help with her sister, Emma. At first, Olivia resisted, but Alex's persistence was hard to ignore. He seemed genuinely invested, and for a brief moment she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was serious about being there for her. But Alex's high-profile life soon began to complicate things. It started with a single photograph. A paparazzo had snapped a picture of Alex and Olivia leaving a doctor's office together, and within hours the tabloids were ablaze with headlines. Billionaire Alex Hayes spotted with mystery woman. Is she pregnant with his heir? Olivia's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends, acquaintances, and even old co-workers were calling and texting, asking if the rumors were true. She felt exposed, like her private life had been put on display for the world to judge. The worst part was the comments. Online forums and social media were flooded with cruel speculation about her character. People called her a gold digger, accusing her of trapping Alex for his money. Some even suggested that the babies weren't his. Olivia tried to ignore it, but the words cut deep. She had worked so hard to build a life for herself and Emma, and now it felt like everything she'd accomplished was being overshadowed by lies and assumptions. When she confronted Alex about the media frenzy, he was apologetic but firm. "This is the price of being in my world," he said. "I can't control what people say, but I can protect you." "Protect me?" Olivia snapped. "You can't even protect me from your own life." "I didn't ask for this, Alex. I didn't ask to be dragged into your world." Alex's jaw tightened. "I'm trying, Olivia. I'm doing everything I can to make this work, but you have to meet me halfway." But Olivia wasn't sure she could. The media storm only amplified Olivia's insecurities. She couldn't stop replaying the cruel comments in her mind, and the doubts she'd tried to suppress began to creep back in. What if Alex was only sticking around because of the babies? What if he felt obligated not because he cared about her, but because he didn't want a scandal? And then there was the matter of trust. Alex had kept his true identity a secret from her during their first meeting. How could she be sure he wasn't hiding something else? Her doubts came to a head during a dinner Alex had arranged at his penthouse. He had gone out of his way to make the evening special, even hiring a private chef to prepare her favorite dishes. But Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in his world. As they sat across from each other, the tension between them was palpable. "Why are you doing all of this?" Olivia asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. Alex frowned. "What do you mean?" "This," she said, gesturing to the lavish spread in front of them. "The dinners, the appointments, the promises. Why are you really here, Alex?" Alex's expression darkened. "Because I care about you, Olivia. And because I want to be a father to our children." "But do you care about me?" she pressed. "Or do you just feel responsible?" Alex's frustration boiled over. "Why do you always assume the worst of me? I've done nothing but try to prove myself to you, and it's never enough." "Because I don't know if I can trust you," Olivia shot back, her voice breaking. "You lied to me once, Alex. How do I know you're not lying now?" The argument escalated, their voices echoing through the penthouse. Finally, Alex threw up his hands in exasperation. "You know what, Olivia? Maybe you're right. Maybe I can't give you what you need, but don't you dare question my commitment to those babies." His words stung, and Olivia felt tears welling in her eyes. Without another word, she grabbed her coat and left, slamming the door behind her. Unbeknownst to Olivia and Alex, someone else was watching their relationship unfold with keen interest. Marcus Lang, Alex's former business partner, had been waiting for an opportunity to strike. Years ago, Alex had forced Marcus out of Hayes Enterprises after discovering that he had been embezzling company funds. Marcus had lost everything, his career, his reputation, and his standing in the business world, and now he wanted revenge. When Marcus saw the tabloid headlines about Alex and Olivia, he saw his chance. He began spreading rumors to the media, claiming that Olivia had a history of targeting wealthy men. He even went so far as to fabricate evidence of her supposed gold-digging schemes, leaking fake emails and photos to the press. The rumors quickly gained traction, and Olivia found herself at the center of a media firestorm. The constant scrutiny became too much for Olivia to bear. Everywhere she went, she felt the weight of judgment, strangers whispering behind her back, reporters hounding her for a statement. Even Emma was being harassed at school, her classmates taunting her about her sister's scandal. Olivia knew she couldn't keep living like this. For the sake of her sanity and her babies, she decided to distance herself from Alex. "I can't do this anymore," she told him during a tearful phone call. "I need to focus on my pregnancy and Emma. I can't handle the media, the rumors, or your world. It's too much." "Olivia, please," Alex pleaded. "Don't let them win. Don't let them tear us apart." But Olivia's mind was made up. "I'm sorry, Alex. I can't." For the first time in his life, Alex felt truly powerless. He had spent years building an empire, controlling every aspect of his life, but now, the one thing he wanted most was slipping through his fingers. He threw himself into his work, trying to distract himself from the pain of losing Olivia. But no matter how many deals he closed or meetings he attended, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Late at night, he would sit at his piano, playing the same melancholy tune over and over again. It was a song he had written years ago, but now it felt like it was meant for Olivia. a haunting melody that echoed the emptiness he felt without her. Alex began to question whether he was even capable of love. His parents' toxic marriage had left him cynical about relationships, and now it seemed like history was repeating itself. Maybe he wasn't meant to have a family. Maybe he was destined to be alone. Do you believe in second chances? Should Olivia let Alex back into her life? Let us know in the comments below. The weeks after Olivia distanced herself from Alex were some of the loneliest she had ever experienced. She tried to focus on her pregnancy and her sister Emma, but the weight of everything, her growing belly, the relentless media attention, and the ache of missing Alex, was almost too much to bear. Emma, always the optimist, tried to cheer her up. "You're stronger than you think, Liv," she said one evening as they sat on the couch watching a movie. "You've been through worse, and you've always come out on top." Olivia smiled weakly, but deep down, she wasn't so sure. She felt like she was barely holding it together, and the thought of raising 4 babies on her own was terrifying. But just when she thought things couldn't get any worse, the unthinkable happened. It was a rainy Friday evening when Olivia got the call. Emma had been in a car accident. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Her hands trembled as she clutched the phone, barely able to process what the nurse on the other end was saying. Emma had been rushed to the hospital with a broken leg and a concussion. She was stable, but the medical bills would be significant. Olivia's heart raced as she grabbed her coat and rushed out the door. She didn't care about the cost. Emma was her priority. But as she sat in the hospital waiting room, staring at the estimate for Emma's treatment, panic set in. She didn't have the money to cover this. Her mind went to Alex. She hated the idea of asking him for help, but she didn't know what else to do. Before she could talk herself out of it, she pulled out her phone and dialed his number. Alex answered on the second ring, his voice tense. "Olivia?" She hesitated, her pride warring with her desperation. "It's Emma," she said finally, her voice breaking. "She's been in an accident. I don't know how I'm going to pay for her treatment." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, Olivia thought he might hang up. But then Alex said, "Which hospital?" When Alex arrived, Olivia was sitting in the waiting room, her face pale and drawn. He didn't say a word as he sat down beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. "I'll take care of it," he said simply, handing his credit card to the nurse at the front desk. Olivia stared at him, her emotions a whirlwind of gratitude and guilt. "Alex, you don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted, his voice firm but gentle. "Emma is family, and so are you." His words hit her like a tidal wave, and for the first time in weeks, Olivia felt the walls around her heart begin to crack. As the hours passed, Alex stayed by Olivia's side, refusing to leave until Emma was out of surgery. He brought her coffee, made sure she ate, and even called her doctor to check on her pregnancy. Watching him, Olivia couldn't help but see him in a new light. This wasn't the cold, distant billionaire the tabloids made him out to be. This was a man who cared deeply, who was willing to drop everything to help the people he loved. When Emma finally woke up, Alex was the first to reassure her. "You're going to be okay," he said, his voice calm and steady. "You're strong, just like your sister." Emma smiled weakly, her eyes flicking between Alex and Olivia. "You're not so bad," she said, her voice teasing despite her exhaustion. Alex chuckled, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Olivia felt a flicker of hope. Later that evening, after Emma had fallen asleep, Olivia and Alex found themselves alone in the hospital's quiet lounge. The tension that had defined their relationship for so long seemed to melt away, replaced by a tentative sense of peace. "Thank you," Olivia said softly, her eyes meeting his. "For everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." Alex shook his head. "You don't have to thank me, Olivia. I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat." There was a pause, and then Alex took a deep breath. "I know I've made mistakes," he said, his voice low. "I've spent so much of my life trying to protect myself, trying to keep people at arm's length. My parents' marriage was toxic, to say the least. They stayed together for appearances, but they hated each other. I grew up thinking that love was just another way to get hurt." Olivia's heart ached as she listened to him. She had always sensed that Alex was carrying a heavy burden, but hearing him say it out loud made her realize just how deeply his past had shaped him. "I didn't tell you who I was that night because I didn't want you to see me as this," he continued, gesturing to his expensive suit. "I wanted you to see me as a person, not a billionaire, but I realize now that keeping that from you was a mistake. I should have trusted you." Olivia swallowed hard, her own emotions bubbling to the surface. "I've been scared too," she admitted. "After my parents died, I felt like I had to be strong all the time, for Emma, for myself, and when my ex left me, it just confirmed what I already believed, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't worth staying for." Her voice broke and Alex reached out, taking her hand in his. "You are enough, Olivia," he said firmly. "You've always been enough." Tears filled her eyes as she looked at him, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe him. That night marked a turning point for Olivia and Alex. They began to rebuild their relationship not as two people trying to navigate a complicated situation, but as partners who were willing to be vulnerable with each other. Alex started showing up more often, not just for Olivia's doctor's appointments, but for Emma's physical therapy sessions and even family dinners. He made an effort to get to know Olivia's world, and, in turn, she began to let him into hers. They still had their challenges. Alex's high preface of a life and Olivia's lingering insecurities didn't disappear overnight, but they faced them together, one step at a time. Do you think vulnerability is the key to rebuilding trust? Could you forgive someone who hurt you if they showed they were willing to change? Let us know in the comments below. The evening was crisp and clear as Alex guided Olivia out of the car and onto the cobblestone path leading to his private estate. The sprawling property was nestled on a quiet hillside, surrounded by lush gardens and overlooking a serene lake that shimmered under the moonlight. Olivia had never seen anything like it. "Alex, what is this place?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. "It's my sanctuary," he said softly, his hand resting on the small of her back as he led her toward the grand entrance. "I come here when I need to get away from everything." Olivia glanced at him, her heart swelling at the vulnerability in his voice. She knew how much he valued his privacy, and the fact that he was sharing this part of his life with her felt deeply significant. Inside, the estate was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal luxury she had expected. The walls were lined with bookshelves, and the scent of wood and leather filled the air. A grand piano sat in the corner of the living room, its polished surface gleaming in the soft light of the chandelier. "You play?" Olivia asked, nodding toward the piano. Alex hesitated, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I used to. It's been a while." "Will you play something for me?" she asked, her voice gentle. For a moment Alex looked uncertain, as if he were debating whether to let her see this side of him, but then he nodded, walking over to the piano and sitting down on the bench. The first notes were soft and tentative, but as Alex's fingers moved across the keys, the melody grew richer and more confident. Olivia watched in awe as he poured his heart into the music, his eyes closed and his expression serene. The song was hauntingly beautiful, filled with longing and hope, and Olivia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had never seen Alex like this, so open, so unguarded. It was as if the music was a window into his soul, revealing parts of him he had kept hidden from the world. When the final note faded into silence, Alex looked up at her, his blue eyes searching hers. "I've never played for anyone before," he admitted quietly. Olivia's heart ached at the raw honesty in his voice. She walked over to him, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch his face. "It was beautiful," she whispered. "You're beautiful." Alex's breath hitched, and for a moment they simply stared at each other, the air between them charged with emotion. "I've been scared," Alex said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Scared of letting you in, scared of what it would mean to love someone. But I can't keep pretending anymore, Olivia. I love you." The words hung in the air, and Olivia felt her heart swell with a mix of joy and disbelief. She had spent so long convincing herself that Alex was out of her reach, that their worlds were too different, but now, hearing him say those 3 words, everything else seemed to fade away. "I love you too," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I think I've loved you for a while now, but I was too afraid to admit it. I didn't think I was enough for you." Alex shook his head, his hands cupping her face. "You're more than enough, Olivia. You're everything." Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and passionate, a culmination of all the emotions they had been holding back. Alex's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and Olivia felt herself melt into him, her fears and doubts dissolving in the warmth of his embrace. The kiss deepened, and for a moment the rest of the world ceased to exist. It was just the two of them, their hearts beating in sync, their love for each other undeniable. When they finally pulled apart, Alex rested his forehead against hers, his breath warm against her skin. "I don't care what the world throws at us," he said firmly. "We'll face it together. You, me, Emma, and the babies. We're a team now." Olivia smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "Together," she echoed, her voice filled with conviction. The rest of the evening was spent in quiet intimacy. They sat by the fireplace, talking about their hopes and fears, their dreams for the future. Alex promised to do everything in his power to protect Olivia and their family, and Olivia vowed to trust him, to let him in even when it scared her. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she could have it all: a family, a partner who loved her, and a future filled with possibility. And as Alex held her in his arms, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Do you believe love can conquer all? What would you do if you found someone willing to fight for you, no matter the odds? Let us know in the comments below. The months leading up to Olivia's due date were a whirlwind of preparation, anticipation, and love. With Alex by her side, she finally felt like she wasn't facing the world alone. He attended every doctor's appointment, helped her set up the nursery, and even took Emma under his wing, treating her like the little sister he never had. Despite the challenges of carrying quadruplets, Olivia found herself smiling more often than not. Alex's unwavering support and the growing bond between them gave her strength. But as her due date approached, the reality of what was to come began to sink in. 4 babies, 4 lives depending on her. Could she really do this? Alex seemed to sense her anxiety one evening as they sat together on the couch. He took her hand in his blue eyes steady and reassuring. "You're not alone in this, Olivia," he said softly. "We're a team, remember? Whatever happens, we'll face it together." His words were a lifeline, and Olivia clung to them as the day she had both dreaded and longed for finally arrived. The early morning hours were a blur of contractions, hospital monitors, and the reassuring voices of doctors and nurses. Alex never left Olivia's side, his hand clasping hers as she fought through the pain. "You're doing amazing," he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her damp forehead. "I'm so proud of you." Tears streamed down Olivia's face, a mix of exhaustion and overwhelming emotion. "I can't do this," she gasped, her voice trembling. "Yes, you can," Alex said firmly, his voice steady despite the fear in his own eyes. "You're the strongest person I know, Olivia. You've got this." Hours later, the room was filled with the cries of 4 tiny, perfect babies. Olivia sobbed as the nurses placed each one in her arms, their little faces scrunched up and pink. "They're beautiful," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion as he gazed at their children. "You're amazing." Olivia looked up at him, her heart full to bursting. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. Alex leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "No," he said softly, "you did it." The weeks after the birth were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diaper changes, but Olivia had never been happier. Alex was a natural with the babies, and seeing him hold their children made her fall in love with him all over again. One afternoon, as Olivia was feeding the twins while Alex rocked the other 2 to sleep, he cleared his throat. "I have something to show you," he said, a hint of mischief in his voice. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Now, Alex, I'm kind of busy keeping 4 humans alive." He chuckled, setting the babies down in their cribs before taking her hand. "Trust me, it's worth it." He led her outside to the car, and after a short drive they arrived at a sleek modern building nestled in the heart of the city. Olivia frowned in confusion as Alex guided her inside. "What is this place?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Alex grinned, his excitement evident. "It's yours." Olivia's jaw dropped as she stepped into the space. It was a design studio. Her dream design studio. The walls were lined with shelves for her materials, the lighting was perfect for sketching, and there was even a cozy corner for Emma to do her homework. "I know how much your work means to you," Alex said, his voice soft, "and I wanted to give you a place where you could create, where you could be you. This is your space, Olivia, your dream." Tears filled her eyes as she turned to him. "Alex, I don't even know what to say. It's perfect." "You deserve it," he said simply, pulling her into his arms. The grand opening of the studio was a celebration of everything Olivia had worked so hard for. Friends, family, and clients gathered to admire the space, and Olivia couldn't stop smiling as she showed them around. But as the evening wore on, she noticed Alex acting strangely. He seemed nervous, fidgeting with his tie and glancing at her every few minutes. "Are you okay?" she asked, placing a hand on his arm. "Better than okay," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in his posture. "There's just one more thing I need to do tonight." Before she could ask what he meant, Alex took her hand and led her to the center of the room. The crowd fell silent as he dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Olivia Carter," he began, his voice filled with emotion. "You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've shown me what it means to love, to trust, and to build a future together. I can't imagine my life without you, and I don't want to. Will you marry me?" The room erupted in cheers as Olivia clapped a hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She nodded, her voice trembling as she said, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Alex slipped the ring onto her finger, and as he stood, she threw her arms around him, their lips meeting in a kiss that was met with applause and laughter from their friends and family. The final scene was one of quiet contentment. Olivia and Alex sat in their living room, the soft glow of the fireplace casting a warm light over the room. The babies were asleep in their cribs, and Emma was curled up on the couch with a book. Alex sat at the piano, his fingers moving gracefully over the keys as he played a gentle melody. Olivia sat nearby, her sketchpad in her lap as she worked on a new design. Every so often their eyes would meet, and they would exchange a smile, a silent acknowledgement of everything they had been through and everything they had built together. As the music filled the room, Olivia set down her pencil and walked over to Alex, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with love. "We've found our forever," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. Alex smiled, pulling her into his lap. "Yes, we have." And as they sat there, surrounded by the life they had created, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, because their love had conquered it all. Do you believe in love conquering all? Share your thoughts in the comments below.